Today on Starships and Steel, we're building forest huts. Stick around if you want to know how. Welcome back to Starships and Steel, helping your game look its best. Today on Starships and Steel, we have been working on some forest huts. These huts are inspired by the Dark Ages and should add some nice flavor to your forest encounters when your players encounter people that need places to live in those forests, because they don't just wander around there aimless. They got motivations and desires and places to stay warm. So we're going to address that today. I would also like to wish you guys Merry Christmas, because this is that time of year. If you don't celebrate Christmas, have a merry, happy season, whatever you do celebrate. I hope the new year brings you all the things you want. Today we're drinking coffee. I know that's pretty boring, but don't worry. We got Bailey's in that coffee. Oh, that's backwards. We got Bailey's in that coffee because it's the morning, and that's what we do around here. So, if you guys would like to see how this video is made, or video, I'm not going to show you that because it's boring. If you want to see how these forest huts are made, come with me and we'll go up to my craft area and we'll build those. Okay, let's make some forest huts. This is the basic result we're looking for. It's got some nice texture, based around some Dark Age huts. They should look pretty good on the table. So the first thing we're going to need is some materials, some foam core, some basic cardstock. This is from a 24 or 12 pack Coca-Cola. You could use Pepsi if you wanted to. Some bamboo skewers. Some thin sticks / stir sticks. Some toilet paper. And with all that, we should be able to build this. Let's look at some tools. We need a steel ruler. This is good for cutting the foam core out. A knife to cut the foam core with. Make sure it's sharp, otherwise the foam core will tear. A pen. I like uniball pens for what I use them for, i.e. pushing the foam core in. A pair of snips to cut the thin sticks or stir sticks. A smaller knife for texturing. I like this style to texture the thin sticks. Some glue. Some good scotch. It's not really that good of scotch, but it's all I got left. Some 50-50 glue water mix. Yeah, oh, and a glue gun. The Johnny Walker Red doesn't get my seal of approval, but you know, does the job. And a water bottle squirt gun thing. Alright, let's get started. First, take our foam core and we'll use it to cut out our two ends. We'll use a miniature to kind of get an idea of how big we want this hut to be. And then I typically round off the number to be something easy to deal with. So I think I went 2.5 here, and then I think I drew a straight line and then cut the width, and then I think I compared this to the actual huts I'd already built, because I want them to be approximately the same size. Alright, so that's how that's going to look. Get the razor knife out, make sure it's sharp. There we go, break off the dull edge, pull out the new sharp one. Because if you don't have a sharp edge, that foam core will definitely tear. The razor knife and the ruler to guide it. Make a couple passes, comes out nice and smooth. Use the next one to trace it again, so you have two that are the same size. And these will be the two, quote, wooden ends of the Dark Age hut when we're done. Alright, let's get rid of the foam core we don't need, and let's take a look at the ends. We'll see they're pretty much the same size. That's perfect. Excellent. So let's take our card. We're going to use this for our roof structure. So there's the original one we had there. Get an idea of the size we want. Get our width, length, whatever you want to call it. I guess length is more of an accurate term for what we're doing there. So we're just trimming off the card so we have a relatively right angle edge to work with. Then we're going to cut it to length, 4 inches. And we're going to use our fronts to measure the rise and run so we get the right distance to cover that up. Double check that. Remember, measure twice, cut once. There we go. That gives us our roof structure. Take our knife out, cut that up, drink some scotch. There we go. Test out the ends with that. Looks pretty good. Check the second one out. Also looks pretty good. So we're well on our way to getting our Dark Ages hut done here. That's pretty cool. Great. So these don't look very much like wood right now, but we can texture them up to make them look like wood after we paint them. So using cheap dollar store foam core, it's easy to pull that paper off. If you used a more expensive foam core, it might be harder to get it off. You might have to soak it in water, but I didn't. So here we go. Just draw some straight lines right down with the knife, and then take your pen, again a uniball, and let's define those lines a little bit so they show up better in painting. Now with this foam core, I learned something new the other day, which I did not encounter with this build. That the foam core apparently has some kind of a grain, I guess, for lack of a better term. I happened to get it the right direction. I would check with your foam core. If you get it the right direction, when you draw these grain lines in, they work pretty well. If you're drawing those grain lines at right angles to the grain, it doesn't draw nearly as nice. So I would double check that. Just take a piece of foam core and draw some lines in like this with a pen, and make sure you have it oriented the right way, because when it is, it's freaking awesome and you get some nice textures. I was experimenting with some tables using this method instead of popsicle sticks, and I quite decided that without cutting them the right way, it was nearly impossible to get the texture I wanted. But if I went back and recut them perpendicular to the bad way, I got pretty good textures. So there we go. That's the first one. Do the exact same thing on the second one. I'm going to cut some lines, 1/2 inch intervals, but you can use whatever interval you want. Take the pen, get those bad boys in there, define them nicely. When you do this, it's going to make the foam core a little bit flexible. If you've ever worked with foam core and you want to bend it around a circle, one of the ways you can do it is to cut essentially what we're doing here, and then you can bend the foam core around. So we'll deal with that in a second. But just keep drawing your texture, get some nice wood grains in there. And as you saw with the previous, it comes out pretty nice. If you are decided you've gone against the grain, you can use a hot gun, like a wood burning tool, to do it and get those textures again. But I would advise just making sure you do it the right direction. So we're just going to glue a cross brace onto here so that it doesn't fold over too much, a little bit of extra strength. And the other side will get that extra strength by the door we put on there. So there, glue that on with your hot glue gun. There you go. And take the razor knife and cut some nice texture lines into there. This is just cutting some grain lines in to catch the paint, and then dry brush over top of it, make it look pretty cool. We've all seen this technique before, either on my videos after I don't know, stoled's the right word, inspired by. I think Wylock did this first, so looks pretty cool. I'm just scraping off the edges there to make sure it's kind of flat. I didn't do this in the last time I did it, but it paints way easier, way nicer this way. Much cleaner. That'll paint up much nicer. So then I just measure this right against the Dark Ages hut and draw my lines, cut them, glue them in, and repeat for the uprights. So we'll do that. Some hot glue on there. Here we go. And one more upright. That gives us our door frame. I was originally going to actually put doors on this, but I didn't in the end. I decided I think I just leave them how they are. They look okay. So this is a bamboo skewer. And I'm just putting that in there to make it look like a door hinge. Again, I was going to fill this in with more popsicle sticks, but I didn't because I'm lazy and I thought it looked okay how it was. Okay, so now let's put in the upright posts, the structure of this tent. And I put these in before I texture the roof just so I know where they're going to be, because it's easier to poke the original holes in the cardboard before you go in and add the paper mache type stuff on the top. Just drill those out a little bit with your razor knife and your pen, and then get a nice bamboo skewer and you can make those holes the right diameter. Alright, then just put your bamboo skewer in there and cut it off to the appropriate length. And then put them off to the side. Once you get all 6 cut. This is again a pretty basic build, but they look pretty cool when they're done. You get a whole little village of these, or whatever you want to call it, it'd be pretty neat. So I'm just taking the hot glue gun here and I'm putting large beads down the line of those uprights so they look like the uprights are indenting on the surface of the hut, even though they're not, but they look like they are when we're done. And then I just fill the rest in with hot glue and texture it up. I don't know if this is the best way to do it. I actually think the best way to do it would be with clay and like Fimo type idea, but I'm pretty lazy and I'm not sure the pros of doing that will outweigh the cons of how long it'll take. So we're going to use glue. We're just going to stream it down there, and these lines are to be not as deep or as big as the main lines we put down there. We want those to stick up still so that you can see the uprights. Let's do the other side. Keep going, fill that in. We're going to soften this texture up with our tissue paper mache concept at the end, which I shamelessly steal from DM Scotty. So let that dry a little bit. Some good texture on there. See how it looks next to the other one. Starting to take shape, starting to look pretty cool. So let's take out those bamboo skewers and keep them in the proper order. Probably doesn't matter that much, but just in case. Okay, so now we're going to add some covering to this once the glue's cool with the tissue paper. So I just put the tissue paper over top and then hit it with some water. You could put glue down first and then put the tissue paper on, but I find this stuff to be fairly delicate and it really wants to tear pretty easily. So like watch with the razor knife here. Yeah, it's super sharp, still didn't cut it very well. So yeah, not so good. That didn't work. Let's get rid of that. Let's try again. One on that side, each side separately. So we put that on there. I'm gonna hit with some water, just so it sticks down, and then I get hit with some watered down glue. Juk, juk, juk. Spray, spray, spray. Nice. Okay. Then we hit with that glue. And when you're brushing the glue on to kind of get it all into the space and pick up the textures, if your brush gets dry, it'll start to get sticky, and when it gets sticky, it tears that paper. So make sure that brush stays wet. Sure, we'll see, because I'm pretty sure this was a learning experience for me. Brush that in there, get the textures out. Looks pretty good. Other side on there. Spray it down, glue, brush. Make sure that brush stays wet. Hit it again, some more water. One more the other side. Spray it, glue, brush. And just like that. Hit the other side with some water and some glue. One more for good luck. Glue, water. And this, of course, makes us essentially a paper mache concept over top of it all. So we'll get it done. We'll go back in once it's dry. We'll poke the holes for the upright poles. Then we'll finish them off and glue them into place. There we go. Make those holes a little bit bigger so they take the bamboo skewer with another bamboo skewer. So it's the right size. Alright. Get those bamboo skewers in there now. I think on this one I put them in when they were still wet, the holes. But the one I'm building right now, I didn't, and it was still pretty easy to get them in, so you can let it dry first. And these ones I had to carve them down a little bit just to get them in those holes with a razor knife. It's like making a hot dog stick, no big deal. Then we'll get our hot glue gun out and glue those into place. The scotch is looking pretty empty here, boys and girls. Fortunately, I started drinking tonight with some Bushmills, which I actually quite like. So it makes the less good Johnny Walker Red taste a little bit better. Or at least you don't notice that it tastes bad quite as much. I mean, bad's a strong word. It's still better than a lot of other alcohols, but... Alright, let's take a look at these two things. So we got a unpainted one and a painted one. See how they look together? Looking pretty neat. Pull that off out of there. Put them down. A little village. There. We'll let that dry, and then we'll get on to painting it. So the first thing we're going to use, of course, is a black, and you could, I guess, spray paint this if you wanted to, although it might kill the foam, so be careful. Test it on the foam before you do it, and I just hit it with acrylic paints and a brush. There we go, all painted black. It's a good base coat color. Make sure you get all the nooks and crannies, and let that dry. Once it's dry, you have a good base coat on there. We'll start working on the next parts. You'll see the good texture. We didn't fill it up with paint, so it looks pretty good. You know, a good dry brush will really pull that out. Zoom that camera back out so we can see the whole thing. Get our little palette out here. Alright, let's get started. See how clean my clean water is, i.e. not at all. some green. This is a dark green. It's a base green color, my dark green color I'm going to use on the roof of the structure. I'm going to add more texture to the roof again. If you watched my previous video when I built the tomb of Fahim Khan, or at least the entrance to the tomb, I often do my base colors underneath those kind of rough textures just so that I get the whole thing covered. Now it's the same thing here. Let that dry. Take a little bit lighter green color, put that in there. And we'll just dry brush over top of that a little bit. Doesn't have to be super dry, but just want to pull some of that detail out. Pretty good. So we want this to be our roof's basic green color. The dark green will be the shadows. Hit it with a little highlight after this, and then we'll put some darker textured green on top, like moss or foliage or something. It's our light green color, so that's 3 colors of green: a dark, a medium, and a light. Some on there. Get your brush out. And then dry brush this on. We're just hitting the tops of this, so this is actually a dry brush. So I use the toilet paper there. And I make sure it's only covering the raised parts of the toilet paper, the raised pattern. And then I go to town on the structure. I mean, be careful, because you can still put too much pressure and drop too much paint by accident. These are some nice highlights. I mean, you could stop here. This still looks pretty cool. Well, not stop, but stop with the green. You don't need to add that extra texture, but I like to because it looks, I think, pretty cool. So I'm just going in again with the light green, and I'm texturing those three poles that run through the roof. 6 poles, 3 on each side, that run through the roof as support poles. All right, here we go. So this is just, again, that green tea mixture. It smells nice. It's mint green tea. See how cool that looks? Again, if you haven't watched any of my other videos, I've just gone and bought the cheapest mint green tea I could find, and I've opened the bags up and dumped them into this. So it was like $2, and I got a lot of flocking. So take some glue. This is non-cut glue, so this is full strength white glue. And I'm just gonna squeeze some onto the roof in various places where I want the flocking to go. And just kind of randomly put it on there, on the bottom if you want, whatever. There we go. Dump the flocking on top of that. Just keep going until it's nice and full. And then I'm just going to cover that up with some watered down 50/50. Oh no, that's regular glue again. Sorry. Just getting some more glue in there to get some more coverage. You get a zoom in on that. There we go. Once this dries a little bit, then we'll hit it with some 50/50 water and glue. Make sure that gets all put away, otherwise you'll make a mess. You might anyways. But dump that in there. I know you guys really appreciate that I keep the footage of me cleaning up my flocking. I'm sure that's super exciting to you guys. And I'm not really sure why I left this little scene in here, but I did. So I was getting a piece of paper so I could finish cleaning this up. This is a good way to get your flock back into the container. Just make a little paper funnel. think we had some dead air there, which is like cardinal sin for radio. At least you had some cool warped, wrecked matte and Dark Ages hut in progress to look at. Okay, these are 50-50 white glue. And you can, I did this right away. You can wait for it to dry a little bit first if you want to. We're just trying to soak that flock with glue and water so that it gets a good bond to the surface so it doesn't pop out. I'm sure you guys have all had terrain where you're using it on the table and the flock comes off and makes a giant mess, or if it's not a giant mess, it's kind of an annoying mess. So we're just going to seal that on with this white glue, this quote scenic cement kind of concept. There we go. We'll let that dry. Just going to dab off some of the excess. Then we'll let that dry. You see there's a little bit of glue pooling on my texture, so we're just going to take the brush and clean that off so that it's looking good. So just make sure that after you put the white glue 50-50 mix on that all your texture bits are clear. So we're just going to take our dark green and we're going to put a base coat over the new flocking. Apparently I can't talk anymore. A little bit of black in there to make it a little bit darker. Brush and mix that up. The exact color here doesn't matter. You just want a pretty dark green color. I think I put a little bit of water in there to make it a bit of a washy kind of. Wash isn't the right term, just so it flows better. Because we have to cover this rough area, we want to make sure we get into all the little nooks and crannies. Nooks and crannies. That's right. Just keep filling that up. Using a bit of more of a detail brush here instead of that big brush. Because I don't want to cover the whole thing in green. Again, I just want to cover the new flock bits in the dark green. If you were so inclined, you could actually paint the entire roof in glue and flock the whole thing. That might look cool. I, of course, did not do that. Go in, a little bit of dark green to highlight's the wrong word. Put shadow next to the poles to highlight them. That's the word I'm looking for. I know you guys like watch a lot of these videos and you think this narration thing is nice and easy. It's not that easy. It's easy to make mistakes. It's a lot easier if you've been drinking a little bit. Well, maybe not easier to understand, but easier to do. But there we go. That's our Dark Ages hut with some dark green on there. And we can go back in once that dries to add some highlights to it. Make it stand out. Maybe some browns. So there's a nice dark brown we're going to put on there. I tell you, I'm pretty sad that my scotch ran out. I should have put a double. Now let's paint this brown anyways until we some water in there, run that down a little bit. Probably darken it up a little bit too because my water's pretty dirty, but not very much. You know, we're going to paint the wood now. That's what the brown's for. There we go. Paint that on there. So our concept here is that we want a dark brown. We want it to be fairly liquidy because we want it to settle into those nooks and crannies that we made. Let's put some on the flock to pull that out a little bit. Because once that dries, we're going to go back in with a lighter brown and we'll pull out that wood texture super nice. It's going to look super cool. I'm really quite happy with how this foam core wood texture's turned out. So I darkened the brown a little bit. I wasn't completely happy with it and went back in again and just repainted those areas so that they had darker recesses. Just paint up the The poles come out of the top because they're wood, not green. Almost getting there. Almost getting to a hut. That's cool. Compare the two right now. See the details. And we fast forward to the next day. So we have some actual real light. So the lighting's a little bit different now. But I'm sure you guys can manage to deal with that. So we get our light brown here. Let's finish up our wood. We're going to dry brush again, so we'll take our paper towel and make our brush have very little paint on it, just so it covers the top. We'll go in with our brush and lightly go over the top of the dark brown, and that'll pull out the texture of the wood. Yeah, that looks cool. This is a super cool way to do wood. Pretty sure I didn't come up with it myself. I'm pretty sure this is, if you go over to Black Magic Craft, we take a look at his videos, and you're to go look at his Longship video, which is a cool video, and he makes a really cool boat. I think he does his foam core and other wood textures pretty much this way. You should definitely check out that channel as well. He's a Canadian like me and makes some really cool terrain. And as usual, I'll link all the video guides I talked about in this video in my description. So I think that so far is Wylock for his wood texture, DM's Craft for his tissue paper concept, and then Black Magic Craft for this foam core wood technique. See how cool that looks? I'll just go in. See, I hit the wood there a little bit hard with the dry brush, so careful with that. So I dry brush everything but the door. And the door I'm just going to leave black or dark brown. And again, you could fill that in with a wooden door if you wanted to. I chose not to. Just going to hit the flocking again with a little bit of light brown. We should just pretty much finish off the build pretty much. And we'll just hit it with some highlight colors. And then we'll pretty much be done. So this is like an oatmeal color, which is like a light brown, like a really light brown. Not white, but pretty close. And I use this just to put some highlights on it, you know, where the light really reflects. So get some paint on a smaller brush. And just go in and hit the edges of some of these boards, which you can't see because I'm out of frame. You think after 7 videos I'd be in frame a lot more, but apparently not. Oh, here we go. All right. Man, that wood looks cool. Some highlights on there. Do some on the front as well. Across the top, down the sides. Hit the top of those upright support posts. And you're pretty much done. I'm going to hit some more green on this apparently. I'm not sure what I'm going to do here. Can't remember. Oh, just a little bit more highlight green on some of that flocking, just to give it some more interesting look to it. And then black, just to fill in the places underneath where my paint slipped a little bit. Just, there we go, fill that up. Just to make it look finished. Perfect. Nice. A little glue wisp on there, because again we use hot glue. You guys know how that is. This is my secret weapon, the Pitt Artist Pen. It's a black pen, flexible nib. I use this to do black shadows along edges. Super easy to just draw a black line on there with this thing.
I could use a paintbrush, but I really don't want to. So here we go. Zhik. There we go, a little black recess on there. Black recess on there. It's kind of like a Sharpie, only that nib's more flexible. I have a brush pen as well, but this one works better. Let's get that shadow in there. Looks good. Looks good. When I built my building fronts, inspired by Mr. Scotty over there, I use this a lot for the shadows along straight edges. So there we go. So that's 2 of those done. I've got a 3rd one on the way, which I probably won't have done for the show off of these, but we'll get to that next. So hopefully you enjoyed the build, and we'll see how these look together in a little scenario. Well, I couldn't wait. I had to see how they looked right away. But we'll do this first, and then we'll go see how they look in an actual little scenario. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with how these turned out. They're pretty cool. Yeah, so a little more to say, and I'll tell you a little bit more about them in a minute. Okay, here are the 2 huts we just built. I'll just kind of zoom in, give you guys a good look at how they look on the table. So I think these turned out pretty good. It would make a good addition to most tables, especially if you were in need of having a rustic type set of buildings in the middle of a forest or somewhere else. So if you like these, give me a like, and maybe leave a comment down below about what you think of these, and maybe things you would do differently or things you'd like to see. And if you'd like to see more content, please subscribe, and when I release new content, you'll be notified. You guys all have a very Merry Christmas, and until the next time, I will see you guys later.